Welcome and thank you for coming. I just have a couple of quick announcements before I call the meeting to order. If you're planning to speak under public comment, you need to have a card into Patty at this table before I call the meeting to order. So if you have a card for public comment, you need to bring it up right away. If you are going to speak under one of the two agenda items, you have until I call the item to turn in your card. Once I've called the item, there will be no more speaker cards accepted. So is there anyone out there who has a public comment card who has not turned it in? Okay, I'll wait just a minute for you to get it up here. Call to order at 7:01. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Wendy?
And forgive me this evening, because normally I do not read, but I'm going to read tonight to make sure that I get down everything I need to say here. So the beginning of the school year has gotten off to an amazing start. Already we have been demonstrating why the Cupertino Union School District is one of the best in the state with our performance on the recent CASP exam. CUSD remains one of the top performing school districts in the state, the highest achieving school district, over 5,000 students. This is no small feat because as educators we have been faced with some of the greatest changes to our system in our lifetimes. We were able to work through the changes due to high quality professional development and a dedicated, committed, and highly qualified staff. As an educator, the success we are achieving in the classroom is what motivates me and my colleagues. Every single day as we interact with children in the classroom, that's what keeps us going. Yet despite this commitment to our students, lately I've found myself immersed in this issue and find it troubling. As many of you know, since the changes at West Valley Elementary School last year, there has been a group of individuals who continue to work towards making their disapproval of the decision the #1 priority of our district. Disagreement and disapproval is never a bad thing, never. But the tactics being used can be. Although I would rather focus all of my time and energy on providing a quality education to all of our students, including students at West Valley, I have worked diligently to ensure that anyone who has a point of view on the matter felt that they were genuinely heard. We have answered emails, all of them. We have answered phone calls, met with individuals. We are attending PTA and PTO meetings so that we can answer questions. We've been visible on the West Valley campus. Despite all of these efforts, there is no denying that the West Valley conversation has devolved into something that as adults, I am quite certain we would not want taught in our classrooms. In particular, I'm referring to the environment where diverse opinions and perspectives are not respected and welcomed. These perspectives have been shared in a forum not open to myself, yet the expectation is I or we should be transparent. Transparent is taking on a new meaning because we have given updates, we have answered every question, except those we cannot legally discuss. Each time we answer a question, we are told that we are lying. The questions we answer are often ignored and misinformation is shared instead. For example, it was shared with me that an open letter to the board was posted in a Yahoo group. Yet my answers to the open letter were never posted. Sadly, I have heard from numerous parents who feel they are being bullied for having a differing point of view. This situation is causing many of these same parents to be silent and withdraw, and as they fear being targeted. Now I'm going to read one of those emails. I'm going to read one that came to us this week. I'm not going to say who it's from because they asked not to because they're actually very afraid. Dear board members, I appreciate you taking the time to read this. I prepared something to say at the special board meeting regarding West Valley, and I include the text below this email. Sadly, although I would very much like to, my family and friends have advised me not to speak. There is a group, as we well know, of angry voices, shouting louder than everyone else, and that group is managing to silence others. These angry parents are stirring up support all over the district, using fear-mongering tactics that their school is next. I have no interest in the controversy around HSD. I don't plan to spend hours researching it, debating whether it's a worthwhile investment or a scam. I understand there was controversy about whether, as board members, you all honestly agreed that a contract with HSD was the right way to go. I also don't know whether there is a scheme to reinvent every single school. I have placed my trust in the district since my first child started school, and I will continue to place my trust in you. I just ask that individually and as a group, you do not get silenced by the bullies out there, whether that be amongst yourselves when deciding whether a contract is a good investment, or if it is when you are there faced with 100 angry parents baying for blood. They have managed to drown out the rest of us, and many parents are too afraid to speak up. But please remember that these parents do not speak for everyone. There are many parents happy with the direction West Valley is moving in. They are just too scared to stand up and say so and put a target on their back. I wish I could follow my own advice, which is to be strong, have courage, listen to your head and your heart. Thank you for taking very much of your time. I appreciate this as been trying, difficult, emotional time for the entire community. The message, the prepared speech that this individual was going to give states, "Good evening. I'm a parent of children at West Valley. I wish to address the issue of how this has affected the children who are at the heart of it. I continue to read discussion boards where members of the community are outraged at how this is harming the kids. You probably won't hear many parents stand up and say something positive this evening. Angry voices always drown out the others. I've had people who I never even knew before August 18th tell me, actually, I'm glad we have new teachers. And then proceed to tell me a story about last year that would probably outrage you. But the parents won't speak up because they have seen the reaction of those angry voices on discussion boards and community boards. I posted many messages saying, wait, your opinion doesn't speak for all of us, and then been told how I'm being negative. Bullying people, have a haughty attitude, or I'm trying to discredit other opinions. So you won't find many people who are willing to take the kind of verbal abuse. But I am willing to. I'm going to tell you my personal story about how this has affected my children. And it's actually a very unremarkable story. I spoke to my children, especially the older one. Did it seem like there were many changes? Nope. Does school seem worse, the same, or better? It's just normal, but now my grade has really nice teachers. Oh, and Mrs. Robinson is good. So is Mr. Wright. He comes to the playground, talks to kids. I like my teacher. Me too. Unremarkable, normal, business as usual. Doesn't sound disruptive or detrimental. Kids are adaptable. If you were offered your dream job but had to move for it, would you turn it down because your kids would have to switch schools, or would you say they'll adapt, they'll make new friends? Here they have the benefit of being at a familiar school with their friends and with the added benefit of these new, enthusiastic, committed teachers who are not looking to maintain the status quo. The staff are fully invested in the success of West Valley, and it has made me excited to see how they are putting in 110%. I don't have any desire to upset any of the former West Valley staff, and I have nothing but respect for those whom my child had as a teacher over the years. I sincerely hope that you are finding warm welcomes at your new school, and you are not bitter towards any of us who are seeking to keep this positive for our children. I leave it up to everyone else to debate how we got here, who knew what, and all of that. I most certainly did not wish for this to happen, but it did, and the best way for my children to make the most of a difficult situation is for me to use my energy and my time to focus on welcoming our new staff, being available to help, and encouraging positivity. I'm already building strong relationships with teacher and staff, and that's why my kids are going to have a fantastic year at West Valley. Now this is me, back to me talking. Having personally experienced this type of treatment, I've been referred to as a Korean dictator. It has been stated publicly that I've been dismissed from 2 previous positions, which is absolutely not true. I've been accused of hiring an organization that I received personal gain from, and that's absolutely not true. And I could go on and on about the things that have been said about myself and others. And after hearing it repeatedly from parents and watching individuals begin to give up, I am asking that everyone return to an environment of respect and civility, not only on this matter, but also on all matters within our district. I thought long and hard about writing this, and I did not want anyone to feel as if they were being reprimanded. And I know tomorrow someone's going to write that I scolded or reprimanded the public. If interpreted that way, I want to be clear that this is not my intention. However, it has become abundantly clear to me that someone has to take a stand in order to return the conversation to a level that teaches our students valuable lessons in thinking critically about information, discussing respecting your neighbor, even when you disagree, and more importantly, being kind to one another. Throughout this process, you have not heard or received personal attacks from everyone who agrees or disagrees. Only a small group of individuals who feel that a perceived lack of transparency gives them license to write stories and put out information without first clarifying the facts. We also have to be cautious at times when we're reading newspaper stories, because they're not always true. And we all know that because we have organizations like factcheck.org. We teach our students to be upstanders, and it's time that as adults we stand up and do the same. I also want to take this opportunity to set the record straight on information that's blatantly false, yet is being disseminated by the group that I referenced earlier. And you have a fact sheet that has been handed out to you. I don't have time, we didn't have time to clarify all those facts in written form, nor will I be able to keep up with the pace of the misinformation that comes out. Thank you for listening, and I'm hoping that we can all come together, agree to disagree, and treat each other kindly. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Moving on to communication from employee organizations. Patty, do we have any?
Dave Villapana.
Dear School Board Member and Superintendent, you had a right to reinvent West Valley School, but it was not the right thing to do. The right thing to do.
We cannot hear him at all. Can you do something about it?
Can you hear me now? Yes. Dear School Board Members and Superintendent, you had a right to reinvent West Valley School, but it was not the right thing to do. The right thing to do would have been to pull all the stakeholders together and have true mediation. The mediator should never have a vested interest in the outcome. The ripple effect of the West Valley situation was felt throughout the valley and beyond. It has brought fear to many sites wondering if it could happen there. I would truly hope that the district has learned a lesson from this. I would hope that the district fairly bargains language in the teacher's contract to never let this happen again. For I know that the teachers and community will never forget this, as they feel that their voices are not being listened to. Our voices will not be silenced. The teachers will move on this cause. Veritas was Leovit. The truth shall set you free.
Thank you. Public comments. I just want to say a couple of things about public comment. Most of you, or a lot of you, are neighbors, friends. Your children play together. Your children participate in sports and athletics together. You go to the same churches. You shop at the same grocery stores. And I think it behooves us all for you to be respectful of one another. One of the ways we can be respectful, in my opinion, is that we don't have an audience reaction to the speakers. That way, the speakers are free to speak pro or con on this issue. It's been passionately debated, as Wendy said, in places that we're not privy to, and it will be debated here tonight, hopefully in a respectful way. I thank you for your cooperation. So Wendy will call the names for public comment. Let me just remind you, you will have 3 minutes. At the end of your 3 minutes, the buzzer will go off, and we'd appreciate it if at that time you wind up your comment as quickly as you can so the next person can come up. We have quite a few public comments. We normally limit it to 30 minutes. We're extending it a little bit tonight so that we can hear from everyone. So if you would please contain your comments to 3 minutes, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
The first speaker, I apologize if I get names wrong this evening, Abhimanyu Jayamanan. AJ? Somebody said AJ.
Hello, my name is AJ. I'm currently 6th grader at Krista McAuliffe School. Recently, I have heard certain rumors, which I do not know if they are true or not, about something similar happening to McAuliffe, similar to what happened in West Valley. I think that any changes being made to the school should be consulted with the teachers first. They are a very educated bunch and they're really good teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Next, speakers Kelly and Tim Smith.
I'm Kelly Smith. This is my husband, Tim Smith. I just wanted to quickly talk about our experience at West Valley.
So our experience started 4 years ago with our
Tip
daughter.
your mic up a little bit, please.
Well, she was in kindergarten. She's very anxious. We knew very quickly when we started school that we were going to have an issue with school transitions. The school year went pretty well. We had some modifications from the teacher, Ms. Redkey. Ms. Redkey, going into first grade, handpicked Ms. Norman to be our daughter's first grade teacher. She thought it would be a great fit and she would respond well.
Beginning of first grade started similar to kindergarten. We spent many mornings with our daughter screaming in the corridors. This is when we realized this is a much bigger situation than we can handle on our own. We worked very closely with Mrs. Norman to develop a plan of attack that would work well for everyone. At 2 months in, our daughter was finally able to be dropped off in class, feeling extremely comfortable and confident. The transition from first to second grade went very smoothly. Mrs. Norman worked very closely with Miss Michael to ensure our daughter had a smooth transition. Our daughter had a great second grade year, building friendships and succeeding academically. You can only imagine how much anxiety we as parents felt when we received the email stating every teacher at West Valley will be transferred. Our immediate thoughts were, how is our daughter going to handle this? Who is going to help us? The foundation we have spent 3 years building washed away just like that. Wendy, I spoke with you over the summer and you reassured me over and over again that everything was going to be okay. You said the kids were being put first. We built this foundation at West Valley where we had trust that the teachers would do the best for our daughter and put her in a situation where she would be able to succeed. Again, all of this was lost. We went into the new year open-minded and hoping for the best. Here we are in week 5. Our daughter has been in maybe 7 solid days of class. She is falling behind academically and socially. We have had multiple meetings with our teacher and the principal. Seeing her struggle day in and day out isn't just a challenge for her, but a challenge for our whole family. We are doing our best to move forward and trying to stay positive for our daughters attending West Valley. Unfortunately, we are reminded every single morning as we have to pull our daughter out of the car crying. We have received multiple calls and emails from the office staff and her teacher about her inability to calm down and attend school. We feel our daughter's struggles have little to do with the efforts of this year's staff, but it has to do with the loss of our foundation. You say you are putting the children first, but as parents with a child who struggles with anxiety and transitions, we can only sit back and wonder how this is the best interest of our children. I just want to end with sharing something our daughter shared with us the other night. We told her you get a new teacher every year. We asked her, what is the difference between this year and last? She got very upset and said, I don't know. I am very uncomfortable and I don't know the staff. Again, this makes us wonder if this situation was really necessary.
Thank you.
Robert Sloan.
I'm Robert Sloan. I have 4 children that were at West Valley. That is 13 years as a West Valley parent. I feel I know the school well. West Valley is the most influential part of my children's education. My children went on to Berkeley, UC Santa Barbara, and MIT. People pay a premium for housing in our neighborhood because of the reputation of this school, a reputation that is now sullied. What is the personal financial loss that I have personally taken? And what is the accumulated loss, financial loss to all homeowners in this school boundary because of this action? Teachers were told at the end of school they had to scramble to find new jobs, many not in their grade of study. They had to learn a new school. They had to learn new curriculum, new parents, new students, had to set up a new classroom. My mother, who is a former teacher, said that relationships is one of the most important things in teaching. We, like many others, had multiple students at West Valley. The teachers got to know our family. This has caused an unprecedented amount of pain. When all teachers are removed, many which I know personally, it is not a failure of the teachers, it is a failure of management.
Yes.
This should never have happened, and it is all our responsibilities to take steps to make sure it never happens again. A decision of this scale should never be allowed to be in the hands of one person. Out of deference to our students, parents, and especially our teachers, and out of respect for their suffering, I would like to propose that Superintendent Wendy Gudelowitz admit that she made a mistake and tender her resignation.
Teresa Phillips.
Hasn't started yet, has it, the timer? It has? Oh, no, I haven't started talking yet. Will you restart, please? I just was adjusting the microphone. Thank you, Patty. My name is Teresa Phillips, and I am a West Valley parent. Because we spend the majority of our adult lives working, and we want to be employed where we feel valued and where our work is meaningful, it's that desire to make a difference that people pursue careers in teaching. Like any profession, teachers want the opportunity to learn and grow and work for a supportive manager. And in return, they want to be treated with respect, feel appreciated for their contributions, and have some influence over their future. It's pretty basic and simple, yet West Valley teachers and staff were afforded none of that. Consider that blog, that real West Valley story that was sent to many of us. You may not agree with it, and you may believe it's full of inaccuracies, but disregard the story and just examine the facts. Click on every link to view the documents. Read all the public records. Draw your own conclusions. I would just like to know, do you believe now that you were as informed about what was going on at West Valley as you thought you were on June 9th when you supported the dismantling of the school? And now that you have all the details, do you support the manner in which the plan was carried out? The blatant disregard for our teachers was a recurring theme in the documents. Teachers and staff were robbed of their dignity, self-esteem, confidence, happiness, and quality of life. The blanket indictment they received with virtually no evidence of wrongdoing was unconscionable. A few examples. When the district told teachers they'd have to reapply for their jobs, they surprised them on the last day of school, right after they had given parents and kids hugs on their way out of class. Less than 2 weeks earlier, teachers thought they had participated in a successful team-building session facilitated by Human Systems Dynamics. And then less than an hour after teachers were given the news, the district sent a memo to all CUSD teachers, encouraging them to apply for the open West Valley positions. Now, how would that make you feel? You think I might be bringing up the past, but your appalling treatment of West Valley teachers and staff is as real today as it was on June 11th. Decency and respect are basic human considerations. Your denying them that reflects very poorly on the district's leadership and judgment. The epidemic of fear and doubt has spread far beyond West Valley to encompass the entire district. Without a change in policy, procedure, and mindset, what happened at West Valley will happen again. We have heard that both teachers and principals are looking for employment elsewhere. People don't quit their jobs, they quit their bosses. So when are you going to take us seriously? When teachers and principals leave? When we're not able to recruit experienced teachers? When taxpayers won't fund referendums? My son, who's in 2nd grade, came home Friday and told me his teacher talked about 9/11. I said, what? He said, she told me a bit about it, but said she didn't know anything or couldn't remember because she was in 5th grade. 5th grade, September 11, 2001, 5th grade. That would make my son's teacher about 25 years old with 2 years of experience. His West Valley teachers last year had 6 times that. This isn't going away, and we are not going away. West Valley 2.0 is not Pleasantville. Parents continue to struggle over what happened and how to move forward. And Human Systems Dynamics, a co-conspirator to the Reconstitution, is now engaged in a long-term contract to reinvent the school. HSD's mere presence on campus is a stark reminder of the district's deception and our loss. Your actions have diminished the morale of your workforce, divided the parent community of West Valley, and breached the public's trust that you'll do what's best for our children. We want accountability. Without consequences, there is no accountability. True accountability begins by looking at yourself, by holding yourself accountable. I have 2 requests. Number 1, please conduct an independent review of the superintendent's handling of the West Valley Constitution. And number 2, get HSD out of West Valley now. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anu Shankar, and all 3 of my children graduated from West Valley. I hope you don't hear my voice as an angry voice. It is more a sad and confused one. After the clean out of West Valley Elementary, we've been dealing with the shock and grief of abruptly losing our treasured and shared connections with many on the school staff. We have not been offered a coherent explanation for what happened. We have no way to process the shock and move on. Our trust in you, the district and the board, has been badly shaken. The district's action at West Valley has polarized our community. Your action has split the parent community into factions, shaken the confidence of teachers in your employ, and destroyed the illustrious and thriving school community, all in the name of resolving tensions that some of us never even felt. If, by the way, the goal of this overarching action was to ease tensions and unify the community, it can only be termed a failure, as it has simply served to deepen or create new fault lines. Here are some selected questions from an email I sent to the board earlier this week. In the immediate aftermath of the shakeup at West Valley, the board president left on vacation without appointing a spokesperson to answer questions that she must surely have known would arise in the wake of such a significant crisis. Do you believe that was responsible behavior on the part of the board president towards the community? 2. The superintendent's published correspondence with the school staff regarding the June 2nd facilitation with an HSD consultant does not mention the word mediation. It calls the meeting your day, which can only be understood as an invitation to the staff to speak freely. There is no indication in this correspondence that the staff's employment at West Valley could be in jeopardy pending the facilitator's perceived outcome of the meeting. Are you convinced that the district treated the employees in a fair manner? Didn't anyone notice the apparent conflict of interest in hiring the same consultant, Human Systems Dynamics, to help rebuild a school they failed to save? Some of the board members and many employees of CUSD call themselves HSD associates. If associates are required to promote HSD, how do you not see a conflict of interest in continuing to engage HSD in various capacities at CUSD? Both Karen Wright and Teresa Johnson, former principals at West Valley and HSD associates, reportedly failed to fix the tensions at West Valley. HSD themselves, according to the district, failed in their mediation efforts at the school. Can you point to one specific instance where HSD has actually succeeded in the district? Have you done your homework on HSD and its value to the district, and are you convinced that you're spending taxpayer money responsibly? And my final question, and I think it's the most important one, how do you see us healing and moving forward successfully now that the parent community is fractured and confidence in the administration is low. Thank you.
Sean Cartwright.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Sean Cartwright. I'm a West Valley parent. I have a third grader in mainstream and a fourth grader in special ed. First of all, I want to thank the superintendent. She listened to the parents in getting a full-time special education to start 5 days before school started. Okay, but I want to discuss more about special education to our board members and how the reconstitution at West Valley was difficult on the special education children. The goal here is to make sure that if anything of this magnitude is ever done again, please protect the special education classroom and program. As you might know, our children in special education do not adapt well to change. When you change out every single adult on the campus, our children no longer feel safe and secure. They don't know who to go to, and it will take some time for them to build their trust. When the decision was made to reconstitute the school, the special education classes and their aides, because there's 3 aides in the classroom, should have been exempted. Although we do recognize that the teacher that the district has provided is a good teacher. However, there's been significant regression in our child. The argument has been made that if a teacher decides to move, the same thing would happen. But I disagree. With special education, if a special education move, the rest of the people in the classroom would stay the same. The campus would stay the same. And that would help our children with the transition. Also, with the move and the new teacher starting, the mainstream program with special ed has started because everybody is new and they're not catching up, so they're behind on that. I don't really care about why, who, and whatever. I don't care anymore. I just want you to consider, don't do this again, but if you do decide to do this, you need to protect our most valuable students, the special education. Thank you, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Speaker Jackie Cohen.
Good evening. My name is Jackie Cohen. I'm a parent of a 5th and 6th grader at McAuliffe and an educator for over 20 years. I have never been to a board meeting and have only participated in PFG meetings once a year. I am here representing some in our McAuliffe community, as well as Hyde and Meyerholtz parents. To categorize us as bullies is diminishing to our concerns. In my years of experience, I have never seen such drastic actions taken so quickly. Was the best interest of students served by overturning an entire staff at a school? Does it help students become ready and eager to learn, knowing that every adult face on campus is new? By taking actions to reconstitute West Valley, the board has created more tension in the entire community, much more than I presume existed at the one school. Such action should include all stakeholders affected by sweeping decisions. It makes parents of other schools unduly worried it could happen to their children's school. It has created a culture of fear, and this must be rectified by our elected officials. We request the following: transparency with respect to the process of reconstituting a school. We are not asking for personnel details, but how the process is decided, when notification is given, and how it will be implemented. Assurances that if such actions are deemed worthy in the future, it is not done quickly and that all stakeholders are part of the process. Additionally, we request a full accounting of money spent on HSD since the superintendent has been with the district. Metrics used to evaluate the effectiveness of HSD. Has staff been surveyed to see if techniques are implemented at the schools and if they are effective? Thank you very much.
Manny Jayaraman.
Good evening. I'm a parent of a 6th grade student at CUSD McAuliffe. I spoke at the last meeting also. I started saying conflict's good, conflict can be great, conflict can be very helpful. Great things can come from conflicts. But when it turns into confrontations, which is what it is at this point, it is not helpful. The job of the leadership is to make sure conflicts don't turn into confrontations. And in this case, I can't help say that the leadership and elected officials have failed. Recently, happened to discuss, I went to a leadership training at my workplace. We are part of a $35 billion company. I'm a senior R&D chemist in the organization. I went to a leadership training, and I happened to show some of the quotes about this. Showed them an article at Mercury News. And Phyllis Vogel, who's the president, was quoted as saying, "Oh, I couldn't remember when we discussed the Reconstitution. Oh, I forgot to assign somebody to speak about this major reorganization for 2 months." And the senior person who manages about 4,500 employees chimed out. She also mentioned that the dog ate her homework. It took about a couple minutes for everybody to pick themselves up. After that, his simple matter was, you have concerns. So, I will leave it at that. The next question is to Superintendent Alowitz. You've talked about great respect for the parent community. However, I feel that that might just be in words. In the last week's meeting, I actually noticed towards the end of the 30 minutes, you actually pointed to your clock that the public comment session is over and that should be closed. And actually noticed this. And it was allowed to continue. So, it just words and actions don't drive at each other. And you have repeatedly said there was been a lot of tensions at West Valley Elementary, which led to this. So, without hacking, this is just available from a simple Google search. I went to the West Valley PTO, Parent Teacher Organization, which I heard more about, and I happened to find their meeting minutes from August 2014, October 2014, January 2015, March 2015. Not a single word of any conflict, any issues. How does this jive with the story? Or is this a case of this conflict being double secret probation? For those who heard of the movie Animal House, there's a double secret probation. This is a double secret probation conflict which couldn't be discussed during the PTO minutes. If so, is the conflict not aware? It's one or the other. The conflict is so big, it needed to be discussed in the PTO minutes, or this is being done to comfort a small group who's not very happy. And the answer that I'm coming up is not that it's a widespread one. The last one is the people who were brought in to fix the situation. Anu mentioned this. 80 people have been trained by this organization. 2 of the former principals at this school has been trained by this organization. And neither one of them could solve the issues with the West Valley situation. So how does this jive with hiring the same people for an exorbitant contract of $450 an hour to fix these situations? None of this passes the smell test. So, I happen to find, since this HSC is listed...
I'm going to have to ask you to wind it up, please.
HSC Institute, I have the tax paperwork from 2013. Their revenue was $500,000. Employee salary is $150,000. The expenses, training expenses, is $350,000. Perhaps some of the people who went through the training can tell us what added up to this much of a training expense. Thank you.
Thank you.
Srivi Kumar.
You can hear me? Thank you. Now, I'm probably going to say something very different from most of the people here. And many parents, including us, have been silent while those against what happened are very loud. I am breaking my silence now. I talked with many parents who concur, but they are actually afraid to speak out because of fear of retaliation. And it is something that I find entirely plausible. Now, honestly, as for never again, well, we'll come to it very shortly. Now, I was there in the last meeting where we had numerous individuals rail against the board and the superintendent. Since then, the school has been operating. For us, what the superintendent did was the best thing that could have ever happened. And I mean it. Our younger son, as well as his close friend, clearly dodged a bullet. And to understand our, not happiness, actually immense relief, you need to understand what happened with our older son. The experience with the teachers and an administration that was pathetic except in spots eventually drove him out. We said, never again. And now he goes to a private school. Yes, we pay through our nose for a private school, even though we are allegedly in a high-performing school district. He's doing extraordinarily well and is loved by his teachers. And yes, his social skills are just fine. And if the board and superintendent wants it, I'll share every bit of information that I have from my past experience. 6 years at West Valley and 1 at CMS. And his problems in the CUSD were because of a bunch of teachers. Let me just be very blunt about it. And let's face this, teachers are human too. Some are great, some are not so great, some are just bad, like all of us. And all these people are also protected by the same union. What I want, and many other parents want, is this. We have been dealing with partial information. We know everything that the board did. But in my understanding, it seems to me that the superintendent didn't want to transfer all teachers, just some of them. And I think it was some kind of an impasse that was happening between the board or the superintendent and the union, that everyone was transferred. And it's been my understanding that it was laid out as a condition that it's all or no one. And I want to make sure that there's another meeting like this, except that I would like to hear the other side of the story, and I'd like to hear from the teachers' representatives as well. If not for any other reason, just because I want all the facts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this next one, I do not have a last name. It just says Melinda.
I'll be short and sweet. And I really don't want to use the microphone. I'm a teacher at Cupertino Union School District. I love my community. I love my school. I'm proud to be part of this community. I want to trust, I want to believe, I want to move forward. We came to this meeting, and the first thing I looked at was myth. The superintendent and the board of trustees visited the Poway Unified School District, as stated in, I don't know what this article is, the Real West Valley Story blog. I guess I'm confused. You guys didn't visit? Robin? So I guess my principal went with some representatives. No?
No, not us. And not for any purpose listed, no, never.
No one from the district went with our principal to. All right, so nobody from our district went with our principal to visit the Poway Unified School District.
Not sitting at this table. Not us, no.
Oh, okay, but that's not what I'm asking.
Yes, I mean, we don't usually answer.
So the statement was that on the blog that this whole entire thing happened because Phyllis Vogel had concocted some plan to reinvent schools. We were told that in the blog that we went to Poway to see some Design 39 school because that was our intent. Not true, and this is how misinformation goes around. We have a new student information system in the district, and it's called Synergy, correct? Mm-hmm. The one school district that was a model for Synergy that had already implemented and had done it for years was Poway. So Jeremy Nishihara, along with 2 tech specialists and your principal, who was part of the data management system work group, went to Poway to see how they implemented Synergy, which is the SIS system. That's what they went for, to figure out what's the best way for implementation and transition as we implement that in our district. That was something he decided to do with his tech team, and how that got misconstrued into, we went to Poway. I've never been to Poway in my life.
Nor have I.
Never been to Design 39, and that's why when I said earlier about misinformation, and I appreciate you actually coming up and asking the question, because before that was printed, no one bothered to ask us. It just gets printed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes public comment. The next agenda item is number 5, discussion.
Not all the names were chosen, I'm just curious.
You just give up on time.
Yeah, so can I ask why the names weren't chosen? So there are more.
You wrote a different item number on your card?
The West Valley number 6 is a different.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Everyone who has a card up here will speak. Some of you have indicated you wanted to speak under the agenda item, so that will happen. So what I'm saying now is I'm about to call up agenda item number 5, which is a discussion information item, and it's the review of Board Policy 4113. If you wanted to speak to that item, you must have your card in now. Is there anyone bringing a card up for that item? All right, then I'm moving to item number 5, review of Board Policy 4113. Wendy?
Yeah, so we had at our August 18th board meeting, we, through public comment, had a couple of requests at that meeting, and we're addressing those requests this evening. So the first item is, the request was for the board to review Board Policy 4113, which is the assignment and transfer policy. The question regarding that particular policy is, why give the superintendent the authority to assign and transfer staff? And can there be an adjustment to the policy to require a board vote, given certain circumstances? The other item related to Board Policy 4113, you've heard comment on it tonight, was to, if there is special circumstance, meaning that a number of individuals of a staff would be transferred at the same time, that the public should be part of that process, have the right to know ahead of time and a right to weigh in on the decision itself. So in order to address those issues, what we have done is we have 2 pieces. One, we contacted CSBA, which is California School Board Association, because they are the ones who recommend policy for school districts throughout the state of California, and our Board Policy 4113 is a standard CSBA policy. So we have a written statement from them, and then we also brought in our legal counsel, John Pearl. John's somewhere in here. There he is. So I'm going to have John Pearl speak to those items, both make reference to the CSBA board policy itself, as well as the issue of including public on potential personnel decisions.
Sure. Good evening, board members and community members. My name is Jonathan Pearl. I'm an attorney with Dennis Oliver Kelly. I am a labor and employment attorney, and I recognize this is a highly charged and sensitive issue. I'm not here to address the issue head-on. I really am here to address what I've learned through experience about how these policies are set up. And then I actually had a conversation with Keith Bray, who is the general counsel at the California School Boards Association, and asked him for some input on this issue, which I believe all board members have, and was available also for the community to grab a copy of it as well. What I'll say rather generally is that your policy 4113, it is rather standard, and it is typical, if not common, that a board would delegate and essentially have the superintendent and the management team make assignment and transfer decisions. What your policy says, 4113, I have it here and I believe others have it as well. It's essentially that assignment decisions are to be made in accord with your collective bargaining agreement or board policy, whatever is applicable. And you have a very detailed collective bargaining agreement provision that was negotiated with the Teachers Association, and that's Article 6 of your contract. And that language specifies that it's the superintendent who initiates an employer-initiated transfer. It's the superintendent who has to provide the reasons for the transfer. And then also then there's an opportunity for a conference if the unit member actually requests it. That delegation or putting the responsibility for transfer decisions with the superintendent is common throughout the state, is my experience, and I think Mr. Bray, General Counsel speaking on behalf of CSBA, makes that observation as well. And in some ways it makes sense, because governing boards are to make policy decisions. They are to establish 4113. But the board should not, my advice, should not be involved in day-to-day operational decisions, managerial management decisions. That's why you have a superintendent. That's why the superintendent has a management team. And that's why that is left to the superintendent, so long as the superintendent actually follows and acts in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement. So really it's the CBA, collective bargaining agreement, that is the key. And that has been negotiated. My understanding is that that has been longstanding language, or much of it has been. And really, when you think about transfer, in your bargaining agreement there could be voluntary transfers, there could be involuntary transfers because of declining enrollment. But we have transfers that occur and they're really inextricably connected to personnel, which is another reason why that responsibility is delegated and vested with the management team, but not the board. You're dealing with people, with teachers, with other employees, and you also have language relative to transfer in your classified contract as well. But it's dealing with personnel issues, it's dealing with transfer decisions that affect people. So there too, the board can only act in open session to take action, but there is an opportunity to act in closed session, but not relative. There you have the right to act in closed session to discuss personnel issues, but really those day-to-day decisions are typically and more commonly left to the superintendent. So that's your policy, and it is rather typical, and you would find many, many like it across the state in different communities. The last question, or the other question was, there was a Brown Act issue about whether the board should or could disclose this process, what it was talking about relative to transfer. And you could disclose anything you choose to from closed session. The caution that I would give you is that if you do disclose those things, then you are affronting or you might be violating employees' personnel rights. And that is why the Brown Act carves out all sorts of exceptions to permit the board to speak about personnel items and to speak about individuals in closed session, and divulging that would really compromise employees' privacy rights. And that's why typically that does not happen. Any questions?
Thank you, John. Any questions from the board?
I just want to clarify, John, so what you're saying is that we could vote to publicly state what happens in closed session, but that would violate personnel issue, which means we could personally each be sued, or as a district also be sued. You didn't say that word, but I'm saying that, okay. Asking that.
I think that's what we're balancing. And that's why when you think about the Brown Act, it carves out the right for you to meet in closed session relative to, really the technical term is discipline, dismissal, release, other items affecting the employment status of your employees. But when you divulge that, and speaking about a transfer, you have to speak about people. That's really what gets implicated.
Just to clarify,
Julie?
You also stated that if we do that for one issue, there would be reasons to believe that we could do it for others, and that can also lead us to have other issues in the future.
Well, there are, I don't want to deal with too many hypotheticals, but there are all kinds of issues that could arise from divulging personnel matters in open session, or as a report out from closed.
Any other questions? Thank you, John.
Thank you.
No, we don't take questions from the audience. If you have questions for us regarding this issue, you're welcome to email us and let us know what those questions are.
Well, I mean, we came to hear his report, and it's hard to, if we talk before him, it's hard to respond to what he's saying. And I think you misrepresented a little bit, because our request was not that you talk about personal items. I think my request last month was that if you're going to do something like the magnitude of West Valley, which is a whole school, not the day-to-day operations, because this has been stated even by the superintendent, that this is not something that's ever going to happen again. So we just wanted something to change in this policy for something of that order of magnitude. So if you're going to move 10 teachers or whatever, which is normal, or whatever normal is, that's fine. But if you're going to move the whole school, that's where we wanted to change. So that's.
I understand. I think we're getting to that. Thank you. So in our board packet, it says that the request was made for the board to consider adjusting the policy to remove the superintendent's authority in situations when a large number of staff members may be transferred. The board was also asked to consider giving the members of the public information prior to transferring staff and allowing public input on the decision. If we are going to make any changes to this board policy, we need to bring it back to a future meeting, because this is not an action item tonight, but we do have some members of the public to speak to us before we discuss where we are with the issue. So, Wendy, who's from the public to speak?
Shinjan Choi.
Good evening. So first of all, everybody, I'm Shinjan Choi. I'm a West Valley parent, now about 10 years. So the first thing I want to do is say thank you. Thank you to the board for holding this forum to come back specifically for West Valley. We as a parent community really appreciate that. Second, thanks to Robin and her staff for being tireless and putting in time and effort to really help build our school back up. So we as a community appreciate that. And third, to everyone here, thank you for coming and showing your strength and support for the community, because this is really what it's all about. It's not, in my opinion, about division. It's really about getting people engaged and hearing voices and trying to come to the best solution, make something a win-win situation, not a lose-lose situation. So I was going to recap John DeMore's speech from last time, because I thought his words were really, really relevant. But based on what I've heard, I just wanted to actually speak just a little bit from my own perspective. I heard the speech, and I'm really, really struck by sort of the policy. I do understand that it is a policy that's sort of vanilla, and thank you, John, for speaking about that. But again, I wanted to highlight that this is a really unusual situation. This is something that's completely different. I don't believe that there's been more than maybe two times, correct me if I'm wrong, that a reconstitution of a California school of this magnitude has happened. So I think that's why we're here, and this is why we're asking for what we wanted. I'll go back and ask and read, citing the statement to the superintendent, the MOU and the board president, who stated, and I quote, "Ultimately, we would like to ensure that an event like this never occurs again. I and those who support my statement would like a change to the board policies that any reconstitution of a school or mass transfer of faculty, we said 30%, greater than 30%, or equal to 30%, will require a board vote. This vote will be preceded by public discourse on the reasons and rationale why this is the only viable solution." So I just wanted to reiterate that to you. And, you know, times change. The thing that I would ask you to consider is, I mean, it used to be, it's illegal for homosexuals to get married, officially. And times change, and laws get changed. And we'd like you to look at the policies in the context of this very, very large magnitude change that occurred. The policy may be good for the standard intent of what we consider to be the normal operation of the school district. It's not appropriate when we're talking about the reconstitution of the school. Thank you very much.
Edward Brown.
Edward Brown, West Valley parent. I wanted to endorse the proposal to set a limit or a trigger that would require a board review of any mass transfers again. Speaking to the lawyers, nobody's disputing that it's reasonable to delegate authority to the superintendent to make ordinary day-to-day transfers. But in this case, it's not an ordinary transfer. And obviously the current policy does not address, there's no discussion of reconstitution in the current board policy. In a similar way, when you employ a gardener to trim your tree, or you delegate authority to him to trim the right branches, you don't expect to come back and find your majestic oak cut down. That's not a reasonable assumption of delegating authority. And I would make the argument that this is a very similar situation. And in regards to the Brown Act question, or not being able to disclose information from the closed session, that I think information has been disclosed to the public, and there's substantial questions as to whether that's accurate information. And since this is a very tremendous change, that we feel that the board owes the public the responsibility to disclose what information they discussed. How did they make that judgment in such a short time in one meeting? We were told that a reinvention of West Valley would take 3 to 5 years to do it right. But we find out only through the request of a district attorney that the discussion took place in one session. And I don't believe that's right. Thank you.